Welcome to today's session, The Secret to a Stress-Free Inspection, Everything Your Inspector Will Ask For. My name is Mackenzie Watson, and I'll be your host today. I've been working in the organic certification industry for about 13 years, and during that time, I've had the opportunity to work alongside producers, certifiers, inspectors, and industry partners. At Quick Organics, my passion is helping organic operations spend less time on paperwork and more time doing what they do best. It's exactly what today's webinar is all about, so I'm excited you're here with us. I'm joined today by two people who know this topic inside and out, Connie Karr and Rachel Myers. Connie, want to introduce yourself?
Sure. For those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Connie Karr. I've been working in the organic certification world for over 25 years, and I'm one of those people who genuinely gets excited about making complicated certification topics easier for people to understand. I grew up on a farm here in Oregon, and these days I'm lucky enough to still have dirt under my nails. When I'm not consulting with certifiers through Wolf & Associates or working with the incredible team at Quick Organics, you'll find me out on the farm growing flowers, vegetables, and likely dreaming up my next big project. One of the things I love most is bringing people together to solve big industry challenges. And that's a huge part of why I'm so passionate about Quick Organics and the Common OSP. I truly believe we have an opportunity to make organic certification simpler, more consistent, and a better experience for everyone involved. I'm excited you're here today, and I hope you leave with a few practical ideas, a little inspiration, and maybe even a new appreciation for what the future of organic certification can look like. Thanks for spending part of your day with us.
And Rachel, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Myers. I've worked in the organic industry for over 15 years with experience in organic farming, inspection, accreditation, technical review, regulatory compliance across all three scopes. I wear a lot of hats in the industry, but am definitely the best known as an inspector. Throughout my career, I've enjoyed helping farmers, inspectors, and certifiers navigate the organic standards. I've also been involved in developing inspector education and mentorship programs with the Accredited Certifiers Association through the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, and previously served on the board of the International Organic Inspectors Association, with 1 year being the chair. So I have done thousands of inspections, and I am really excited to be here today to share what I've learned about a topic I'm so passionate about. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you both for being here today. Let's get started. Before we get into the specifics, why does this topic matter so much? I feel like Inspection Day has a reputation for being really stressful.
And it really doesn't have to be. And I say that as someone who used to be the person showing up. Here's the reframe that I would offer. Inspection Day is not a test that you pass or fail on the spot. Your inspector isn't there to catch you. They're there to verify one thing. That's what's on your paper matches what's actually happening on the ground or in your facility. That's it. So the stress almost never comes from the standard itself. It comes from the scrambling. It's the night before, the hunting for the receipt from last April, trying to remember which field got which input. When your records are actually captured as you go, Inspection Day can turn into a conversation instead of a scavenger hunt. And honestly, the operations with the smoothest inspections aren't the ones with the most paperwork. They're the ones who can actually find it.
So today we're walking through what inspectors ask for and how to have each one organized and ready to share. Let's start with the first one, the OSP itself, the master plan. What exactly is an inspector checking for here?
Well, the OSP is your master document or your foundation of certification. It describes every practice in your operation, and under the regulations, it's what your certification is actually built on. Two things I'd want people to hear. First, annual updates and any changes need to go to your certifier for approval before you make them, not after. Second, and this is the part inspectors really tend to care about, what an inspector is verifying is that what's happening in your field or at your plant matches what's on paper. And here's what I've learned during this for 2 decades. Most of the findings or non-compliances I wrote were not because someone was doing something wrong. They were because the OSP itself hadn't caught up to the change that they made for perfectly good reasons. So keep the current signed off version somewhere that you can actually put your hands on. That's exactly what our digital filing cabinet is for. I'll also say this is the piece the common OSP is designed to fix. If you've ever switched certifiers and had to rebuild your whole plan from scratch in somebody else's format, you know exactly what I mean. I once inspected an operation that had brought in a new field into production mid-season and transitioned it into organic. They had great ground, good buffers, and everything about it was compliant. But it wasn't in the OSP yet. So instead of having a 5-minute conversation with them, it became a non-compliance. And they had to wait on approval before that crop could be sold as organic. Nothing was wrong with what they did. It was just the paperwork hadn't caught up with them yet.
Next up, activity and production records. What falls into that category and why does it matter?
This is your day-to-day log. Planting and harvest records, field activities, input applications, what happened and when. This is basically recording everything that you do. I have been to more operations than I can count who have these records and they're in the cab of a truck. Or they're down the road at the grocery store because their wife had to go do something and they're in her diary in a purse somewhere, right? And so having the opportunity to use Quick Organics and have a system where you can take your phone, which is typically waterproof, and pull it out as you're doing it on the go is a huge benefit. Not only it is on the go, but it's all in one place. It's not in the attic because, it was from 2 years ago and the inspector had looked at it, but you need it for a trace back. It's, you can't, it's not one of those notebooks that are so now stuck together because it got, you put it on a shelf on the picnic table and then it downpoured. None of that happens with Quick Organics. It's right where you need it, when you need it, and when you do it.
What about input documentation? What does an inspector need to see there?
So this is where I see a lot of gaps, probably the most, hands down. What the inspector needs to verify is that every input material that you used is actually in your OSP and allowed for organic production. So that's your receipts, product labels, your OMRI or WSDA listings or approval, your safety data sheets, the documents that prove what's in that jug matches what you told your certifier you were using. That's it. 2 trapside flag. 1, labels change. Manufacturers reformulate and the product that was approved 2 years ago may not be the same product today. So document the label for the lot that you're actually applying, not the one that you bought in 2023. Number 2, somebody gave it to me is not documentation. If you can't show where it came from and what's in it, an inspector has to treat it as unverified. The habit that actually works is capturing the label at the moment of the purchase or application, not at the inspection time. And our digital filing cabinet and activity tracker in Quick Organics lets you store that label and the receipt right alongside the activity and where and when you used it.
Purchase invoices and receipts come up a lot too. Why do those matter beyond just bookkeeping?
Because everything sold by your operation needs to be accounted for. These records can come into play in traceback audits, mass balance audits, and general record verification. Invoices are the supply chain. Invoices in and invoices out, but the invoices in are what ensures that your operation is compliant and maintaining organic integrity. And other than a very few operations that have no inputs and have only perennial crops like hay or blueberries, everybody has incoming documents to verify in that supply chain. For a mass balance, we're going to look at, I bought this many pounds or tons of flour. I used this many tons of flour. I sold either this many tons of flour or the product that this many tons of flour in. And all of the math has to math. And without the math that says this is what I purchased, we can't verify compliance. It is a food fraud exercise, and it is a huge part of how we maintain organic integrity within this industry. Same for a trace back. Here's the cows that, their milk is going into the milk tank. They were purchased. How do we know that those cows are actually organic? Well, it's the sales record. Does that trace back to an organic certificate? Incoming documentation is an absolute linchpin in organic integrity, and having it all in one place in the document management system is going to save a ton of headache and make you, allow you to just breeze through the inspection.
Let's talk cleaning and sanitation logs. What's the inspector actually looking to confirm there?
So what the inspector is confirming here is simple. If something touched non-organic product, show me it was cleaned before it touched organic product. And that something is probably broader than most people expect. It includes shared equipment, augers, totes, storage bins, your livestock housing, trucks, transportation units, and even a rented combine. Two things make a cleaning log actually work: a date and a description of what you did. Cleaned by itself doesn't tell me much as an inspector. I blew it out with compressed air and flushed the first 200 bushels out as non-organic on August 14th. Now that I can verify. And if you're using a custom operator or like rented equipment, you need their records too. And that's the piece that people forget, because the record, they think, belongs to somebody else. The activity tracker that we have logs these cleaning events with dates as they happen. So nobody's reconstructing August from memory in October. The version of this that I saw over and over was the rented combine or the custom trucker. The operation itself is spotless, but the equipment that they hired came out of a conventional field, and there's no cleanout record because they didn't think it was their record to keep. Ask for it in the moment. Take a picture of it as it arrives and upload it to the Quick Organic system. Nobody wants to be calling a custom operator in December asking what he did back in August.
And what about buffer management? What does that documentation need to show?
It needs to show how you're protecting your field from drift or contact with prohibited inputs. So if you have a cornfield and it is right next to a conventional cornfield where there's spray and GMO, we need to make sure that your corn is protected. So, we're talking about GMO drift for pollination, and there's different ways to handle that. We're talking about, is your neighbor using a boom sprayer or a helicopter to spray, pesticides and herbicides? And these are all critical components to making sure that that drift doesn't compromise your organic certification. We don't want drift in organic food. So just because you're not applying it doesn't mean that it's okay. And so the biggest issue that I see with buffer management is the documentation, right? It's one of those things where it's like, well, it's just this 20 acre, 30 acre strip here. It's not organic. Why do I have to write it down? But you need to write it down, and you need to have it documented so the inspector can verify that it didn't go into the organic supply chain. And so how you do that, I harvested it with the combine and then purged, a whole row through, and that was fed to my conventional pigs. Or the animals grazed, my horses grazed it, my non-organic animals grazed it. And so documenting that it wasn't used for organic and how it wasn't used for organic is critical to verify that we're not selling potentially contaminated product as organic. And you can do that through the activity tracker. And also through document management. We have a whole activity module just for tracking buffer management. And then, sale of that conventional product, you can keep an invoice right in the document management system.
Seed sourcing is one I know trips people up. What is the requirement there?
Seed is one I get the most questions about, and it's the one that generates a lot of non-compliances, unfortunately. The rule is that you use organic seed when it's commercially available. If you use non-organic, untreated seed, you need a documented search showing organic wasn't available in an equivalent variety, form, or quantity. And the word that trips everybody up is documented. A search isn't a memory. A search actually names dates, who you contacted, and what they told you. Most certifiers will want to see at least 3 sources, so check what your certifier expects. And the equivalent part matters. Price alone generally isn't accepted as justification, and neither is my agronomist likes this variety. What counts is form, quality, and quantity. In Quick Organics, those sourcing records sit in the digital filing cabinet tied to the searching activity that they actually belong to. So the search and the seed stay together, which is how an inspector wants to see it. My favorite version of this is the grower who actually did the search. They did everything right. They called 4, even went above and beyond the 3. They called 4 suppliers and got told no 4 times. And they wrote none of it down. So at inspection, he done everything right, and he still ended up with a non-compliance, purely because there was no record that it happened. Do the search once, document it once, and you're done for the year.
What about storage and handling? What's the risk if that's not documented well?
The risk is commingling and traceability. So organic products needs to stay separate and traceable all the way through from harvest to post-harvest handle or to sales, including post-harvest handling. Grain is a great example. Grain in a grain bin. Grain usually comes from several different fields and is often stored at farms with multiple grain bins. Many times there are grain bins that also store conventional grain. Sometimes it's added to grain from previous years or grain that's been purchased in. Grain has such a long shelf life that lots can be easily commingled, and it's still required for that to be traceable. And so making sure that you're recording the location of the storage after harvest is typically a critical data point that allows for full traceability. I sold this lot came from this storage bin, the grain in this storage bin came from these fields were planted with this seed. And that component in the middle is often where people get tripped up because they don't have clear linkage to the lot. It's also really critical because if the inspector's out there and you stored it in grain bin 3 and grain bin 3 does not have an organic designation, that's a problem, right? And so these are all really critical ways to maintain these are all really critical records to maintain the organic integrity to show to your inspector. And the activity tracker documents those steps in a way that is easy for the inspector to understand and accessible at inspection.
And organic certificates themselves, why does the inspector need those on hand?
So every certified organic operation has an organic certificate, and your inspector needs it for anything that you bought as organic. That's seed, feed, livestock, your ingredients. And since the strengthening organic enforcement came into full effect, this got a lot more real. If you're buying organic, you're expected to verify your supplier is genuinely certified, that their certificate covers the specific product that you bought, and that it was current at the date of that purchase or transaction. That last part is what kind of catches people up. A 3-year-old certificate in your file is essentially the same as no certificate at all. So the habit that I would build is pull a fresh certificate at least at a minimum annually for every organic supplier and read the scope and not just the name at the very top. The Quick Organic system keeps the certificate and the matching purchase documentation all together, which is exactly how you want it when someone's running a traceback.
And last one, prior corrective actions. What should someone have ready if they've been through this before?
If you've received a condition for continuing certification or any kind of corrective action, your inspector typically wants proof that it was addressed on your operation. Being prepared here makes the whole inspection go so much smoother. When an issue has been identified, it's critical to really implement change at your operation. If you don't, this could escalate to the next level, which nobody wants. Paying extra attention to areas where you have struggled to meet compliance is critical. This can be everything from conducting a seed search to having invoices at inspection to testing for QA on equipment. It's important to be able to easily reference what the certifier needs and set reminders to actually implement it. The digital filing cabinet helps these documents stay organized so you can reference what your certifier needs, and the task management keeps corrective actions assigned and tracked all the way through to completion.
So just to bring it all together, every one of those 10 things lives in Quick Organics and can be shared directly with your inspector. No digging through folders, no emailing files back and forth. Connie or Rachel, anything you want to leave people with before we move to questions?
Two things. The practical one first. Don't build a record-keeping system for your inspector. Build it for yourself. And then if it happens to work for your inspector too, then that's great. Every one of those 10 items is something you already know about your operation. The only question is whether it's written down somewhere and you can find it. 10 minutes a week sure beats 10 hours in April. And then the bigger one. I've spent more than 30 years in this system, and I'll be honest. A lot of the burden that you feel isn't the organic standard. It's the inconsistency around it. Every certifier asking for the same thing in a different format. And that's the problem that the Common OSP is built to solve. In some of our early testing, we saw OSPs that used to take somewhere around 32 hours come down to about 4 hours. And that's not a software feature. It's a free, public, shared framework that certifiers, inspectors, and the producers built together. And now that the NOP is bringing forward as a public document. It isn't finished and it isn't perfect, but it's the first time in my career I've seen this whole industry agree to fill out one form. So if you take one thing from today, certification is genuinely getting simpler. And I hope you can come be a part of that.
I will second what Connie said. I am a big believer in the Common OSP. When it was being created, we went out to a farm and asked them to take a look, and their reaction was, this was actually made for farmers. It's easier to understand. It gets to the point more quickly about the regulations. It's done in a way that makes it enjoyable, and using Quick Organics to do it is automated, and we have software where if it's something isn't applicable to you, you don't have to be bogged down by trying to figure out whether or not you even need to answer that question. You only need to engage with the things that apply to your operation. And so it's a wonderful, even the Word documents, the format, the questions, the language, all of that was really made to work with farmers and producers. And then the technological opportunity to do it online for those that have that technology capacity makes it even easier. So yeah, for sure, the Common OSP all the way up. And then my second one is I've done inspections where people have told me that it was fun, and it can be fun. I mean, the biggest struggle is when people don't have their paperwork ready. And 99% of inspectors are there because they believe in the operator and they believe in the movement and they want to see people succeed. And so if you give them the opportunity to see you succeeding, they will be your biggest cheerleaders. Having everything together is typically what makes an inspection better, better on every level. And so, again, Quick Organics is an awesome opportunity to be able to really make that happen even easier than having to create your own systems.
All right, we have some time for questions now. Feel free to drop them in the chat if you haven't already, and I'll read them out. So first up, how far in advance should I start getting organized for an inspection?
You should always be ready for an inspection. it is a requirement that you're keeping records, and it is not in the standards that you can fill out those records later. They're typically incorrect, they're inconsistent, you put down the wrong date. And the other really important thing to keep in mind is that 5% of operations receive an unannounced inspection. There is no phone call or email a couple weeks ahead of time to let you prepare. Somebody knocks on your door and says, "I'm here, surprise!" And they can look at anything that they want, and it is fair game. And so having those records ready, available, and organized at all times is really the way to go.
How long do I need to keep these records for?
5 years. 5 years past the date that the record was created is what the regulations required. And I'd keep them longer if it doesn't cost you anything, which digitally in the Quick Organic system, it doesn't. Traceback questions can actually come up years later and can actually reach back further than one might expect.
Can I give my inspector direct access to my records in Quick Organics, or do I have to export everything?
You can share it directly. No exporting and no emailing files, crazy email systems all around. You can actually manage your users in the Quick Organics by giving your inspector limited time access. And one of the benefits I see with this is you're actually able to give your inspector access to a lot of your records in advance of them showing up on site. So they can do some of that work while they're at home or on the airplane or, in a hotel overnight or wherever, and get a head start on that inspection, which ultimately saves you time day of inspection.
That's all we have time for today. Connie and Rachel, thank you both so much for walking us through this. Before we go, I want to make sure everyone catches this. If you sign up for Quick Organics by August 31st, I know that slide says July 31st, it's actually August 31st, you will get a free 12-month trial. You can get started today at quickorganics.app or learn more at our website at quickorganics.com. And don't forget to follow us on socials. If you have any questions after today or just want to chat, reach out to us anytime at hello@quickorganics.com. We'll also be sending this recording to everyone who registered. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.